Welcome to Dial It In, a podcast where we talk with fascinating people about marketing, sales, process improvements, and tricks that they use to grow their businesses. Join me, Dave Meyer, and Trygve Olsen of BusyWeb as we bring you interviews on how the best in their fields are dialing it in for their organizations. Let's ring up another episode.
I had this whole rant prepped today about things that have been happening to me, but then our guest asked us a question that kind of completely nobody's ever asked us in the history of us doing this podcast together. So she completely baked my noodle. Okay. Oh yeah. Now I remember. If you are dropping off your kid at an elementary school parking lot, shame on you for parking in the handicap spot and then leaving your lights on so it looks like you're going to come out soon. Because then everybody's waiting for you and everybody's trying to get their kid to school on time. And if you have a fifth grader like I do, he wants me to park far away from where he goes in so that he can hug me and tell me he loves me and then also look cool at the same time. But for the love of Pete, stop doing it.
We're here.
Yeah. So the other thing that was interesting is, Dave, when you and I, when we're recording this, it was a little bit after Thanksgiving. I took my wife's parents back to their senior living facility, and I had to get them there by 8:00 because it was curfew at the senior living place. And oh my God, it was the converse of elementary school drop off, where everybody was trying to get them there as soon as possible. So you'd see people screech out, slam on the brakes. The driver would run out, pop the trunk, and like walkers and stuff, and everything was flying out. It was an eye-opening experience. I'm off my rant. I'm off my soapbox. Everybody can get back on my lawn. And we have an amazing guest today, and something that I am really excited to get into. One of the things that, as a leave behind for me for 2025, is I teach a class at HubSpot for beginning salespeople. And one of the things that one of my mentors told me, I tell the beginning salespeople all the time when they're scared or they're afraid and they don't know if they can do it, is I say, that's okay. I'll be confident enough for both of us until you're ready. And to that end, we are blessed that we have two people in our organization who are active members of what we're going to be talking about today. And I know, Dave, you feel like this is a really amazing thing that we get to talk about today too.
Absolutely.
So we're blessed that our guest is here today. But before then, do we have a sponsor for today's episode, Dave?
Interestingly, we have a sponsor that I think is going to be relatively close to our guest's heart.
Ooh.
I'd like to promote today freemomhugs.org. If you are looking for a spot or a place to share the love and to share support for communities in need, please visit freemomhugs.org. Find a chapter, look at the conferences and all of the events and places that they're visiting, because Free Mom Hugs gets out and they share the love with people that need it the most in our communities. So please visit freemomhugs.org.
Thanks, Dave. I don't think that's going to make us any money, but I agree. It's a great sponsor for today's episode. So our guest today is Sara Cunningham. She is the founder of Free Mom Hugs, a national nonprofit movement born from her journey as a mother and ally. She was raised in a conservative Christian community in Oklahoma, where I'm told the wind comes sweeping down the plain, but we'll get into that. Her world changed when her son came out, prompting her to re-examine faith, family, and acceptance. In 2015, she pinned a homemade Free Mom Hugs button at a pride parade, offering hugs to LGBTQ plus individuals who had felt unseen. Today, Free Mom Hugs has chapters in all 50 states, mobilizing volunteers to bring love, affirmation, and connection to anyone who needs it. So with humility and authenticity, Sara shares how transformation, visibility, and simple acts of kindness can ripple into meaningful change. Welcome, Sara.
Hello. Good morning. Thank you for the invitation.
I think what Free Mom Hugs is such a simple idea that's also just so unbelievably extraordinary. I read a little bit about your bio, about how you did it, but can you walk us through how it turned from hugging people at a parade to a movement.
A movement. The journey between that first hug, which we at Free Mom Hugs, we call that the spark. It's the first time that two strangers get together and they acknowledge each other with a hug or a high five or just that eye contact and positive affirmations, and being accountable, hearing stories from the community, and then offering to be a stand-in at a wedding. And that post went viral, and we heard from people all over the world, and they soon found out about what we were doing here in Oklahoma City, and they wanted to do it where they were. And that's how we became a movement.
Amazing. And tell me a little bit more about the stand-in at the wedding part. 'Cause
Yeah,
I don't know if I saw that one.
It was a journey. Like I say often, that it was a journey from the church to the Pride Parade. I started meeting members of the community, couples who were falling in love, getting engaged, and I became, in the meantime, an accidental activist. And so I met a couple who'd been together for 28 years, and the Marriage Equality Act passed, and they asked if I would officiate their wedding. And that's something I never would have imagined myself doing, but I loved them and I knew them, and so I got ordained and I officiated their wedding. They were the first lesbian couple to be married in Natchez, Mississippi. And
Wow.
so then other couples started asking if I would officiate their weddings. And through that, at the rehearsal dinners, I would hear stories how parents were refusing to come to the wedding, not acknowledging the relationship, and just the devastation or disappointment from the couples. And it was devastating. And one night, in frustration, I made a social media post that said, if your biological mom won't come to your same-sex wedding, call me. I'll be there. I'll be your biggest fan. I'll even bring the bubbles, is what I said. And that post went viral. And at the time, I didn't even know what going viral meant. But we heard from people all over the world. Now, in the meantime, it's just me and a couple of moms showing up here at Pride festivals, Second Chance Proms, anything that we can do to be that loving presence in the lives of those, like Dave said, who need it the most. And that post went viral, and it caught a lot of attention, and we can talk more about that later if you want.
Yeah.
But people soon found out about what we were doing here in Free Mom Hugs. But as far as the stand-in mom goes, or I am an officiant, I make a way to officiate same-sex weddings, or I do straight weddings too. But I never want to be a burden to the community. So I have a fund that helps me, allows me to get there. Or if I can't get there, we have a long list of people who are able to officiate. But in the meantime, a man, which would make a great guest on your podcast, by Dan Blevins, and he is the founder for Stand in Pride. And he was inspired by that social media post that went viral, and he offered to be a stand-in dad, and his post went viral, and he started a nonprofit called Stand in Pride. And it could have very well been a Free Mom Hugs thing, but we didn't have the bandwidth for it. But anyway, check it out, Stand in Pride, Daniel Blevins, an amazing man. He's a member of the community, and he's sassy, he's classy, and just doing amazing work. They even designed an app, a stand-in app. It's called Stand in Pride. And it's for all over the world who's willing to stand in. And last thing, and I'll shut up, but we never want to replace a parent. I think Dan, myself, our volunteers, the mission of Free Mom Hugs is not ever to replace a parent. We're always hopeful that the parents will come around. But until they do, we want to be that loving presence. So that's how it became a movement.
Ton of sense.
And I think that there's a great book about the inappropriate uses of grammar called Eats, Shoots, and Leaves, where it's on the cover, it's two pandas, and one is happily eating a bamboo stick, and the other one has just committed murder and is walking through a door, because the comma placement in the say Eats, Shoots, and Leaves makes all the difference. So I think one of the things that is critical is like you said, you're not looking to replace somebody's mom. You're the free mom. It's free, comma mom hugs. It's not free mom replacement therapy. Right?
Oh, no. Nope. And we're not therapists. We're not mental health therapists, but we can sure point to resources as needed. We just want to be loving presence. In Oklahoma, we started helping with phone bills, bus passes, things that are practical help with basic needs, as those have been alienated from their families, from their church homes, and from many parts of society. So we did start standing in, and much like the church life, when I was in a congregation for 20 years, we served people inside and outside of that congregation. We did amazing things within this community. And then once that alienation came, as I became more affirming, because the doctrine didn't agree with what I was learning and what I was accountable to. So all that to say, it's like, I don't even want to really call it a ministry, because it's what a parent should do for a child, or a neighbor should do for a neighbor, right? Just take care of me.
Yeah. A human for another human. And so let's take a couple of steps all the way back, because I want to hear the origin story of Free Mom Hugs. And can you tell us a little bit about what was happening in your life and how this spread out? What inspired you to craft that first homemade Free Mom Hugs button and to get out and stand out?
Yep. It took some time. It was a process. I say, when my son came out of his closet, I went into mine, and I had to just re-examine everything I believe. And listen, it's been 10 years, but look at me. I'm emotional, because it takes me right back to that time when I was just on this journey of such devastation from being alienated from a church home of 20 years, leaving everything that I knew behind as a woman of faith, and then going through my son missing an entire adolescence of his life out of fear and ignorance from bad theology. Up until that time, knowing what I put my own family through, and then seeing my son happy, healthy, living authentically, meeting his friends, hearing their stories, and being accountable. But the one thing that I heard the most, and that I even put my son through, is that they had lost their sense of belonging. And with that, they lost their mother, the parental figure, their comfort, the one person who should have celebrated and supported them. I went to a Pride festival in 2014, and I was still on the fence. I had no idea the significance of a little gay bar in New York City called the Stonewall Inn, but I wanted to see God's favor there. Could I have Googled Pride and the history of it? Yep. Did I? No. I just wanted to see God's favor there. And guess what? I did. I had a pivotal divine intervention, if you want to call it that. But at that Pride festival, I saw beautiful diversity and community and love, acceptance. And I started hearing stories about how just people were missing their moms. And so, homemade button. And the next year, I went to a Pride festival. And with anyone who made eye contact with me, I offered him a hug or a high five, because not everybody's a hugger. And the first hug I gave went to a girl who said it had been 4 years, said she had a hug from her mother because she's a lesbian. And from that experience, we started Free Mom Hugs. And this is our logo. And I love it because it's very simple. And it sends a message, whether you can use words or not, that you are a strong and faithful ally. And I'm not the first mom to offer hugs at a Pride festival, but from that experience started Free Mom Hugs.
Was that the button that you showed us, the first one?
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
That's got to be, that's an actual American history lesson.
Listen, I didn't even know how to order stuff on the internet. That's how naive and behind I was. We had the internet, a computer, but anyway, I went to Michael's and got these homemade buttons that you make. And anyway, that's the button.
I love it.
I do too.
That first Pride parade that you showed up to, how many hugs did you give out? I would imagine you probably had a line forming.
Let's just put it this way. I went home covered from head to toe with glitter.
Of course. Yeah.
It was bittersweet, really, just being there and hearing all the stories. And it's haunting, really. And I do get emotional because it takes me right back to that day.
I'm getting emotional just hearing about it.
Absolutely.
And every pivotal moment in my life, meeting the community, meeting that first couple that had been together for 28 years, getting them married, and then meeting the transgender community. I went to a PFLAG meeting that I thought was for high schoolers or families like mine, and it turned out to be for the adult transgender community. And listen, I'd never been in the same room with a transgender person that I know of until that day. I stayed because I was curious. And I listened to their stories, and I cried out tears in my car after that meeting because I thought, these are beautiful, misunderstood people, and how different their lives could have been if they just had support or access to earn a living or healthcare. And so I'm a town crier, but
It's okay.
Just the empathy and the power of fear and ignorance is.
And I think that's powerful. And one of the reasons why we wanted to invite you here today is, especially, and we're not going to get political or that, but it's important that everyone remembers, especially we're recording in the holiday season, a simple act can make a huge difference. And especially with the way that the media is going, and in a click-based society that focuses on engagement in capitals to get people riled up, just reminding people that we're all humans and we all need love and connection, and offering up hugs is one of the simplest and most powerful things you can do. So this is, as much as anything, it's a public thank you to you for sponsoring and sparking this movement.
Thank you. But
And sponsoring the podcast today.
Yeah, of course.
Unintentionally. Let's ask bigger questions. I don't think this is necessarily unique to the community that you have, that you're a part of. The holidays can bring up a mix of emotions and are hard for everybody. And that's, I think, why we wanted to illustrate this in large part today, not only because of the extraordinary work you're doing, but I think everybody's hurting in some ways. So how can you recognize if somebody's hurt? And just because I think that there's an extraordinary simplicity and revelatory nature of just physical contact. So what can we tell people? Hey, if you see somebody,
As a professional hugger.
yes, as a professional hugger.
In my research, I have found that the most powerful thing that we can do as human beings is just to look each other in the eye and just say, how are you? I'm glad we're here together. Or just some words of affirmation, or even a phone call, a letter, a card, just some sort of acknowledgement that we're here together, and just love. And you said the holidays are hard. You're right. They can be extremely difficult. But there's a couple of things that I found helpful. And I learned this from another mom. But if you're at a holiday gathering, or just a gathering of any sorts with your family or people who may not be as accepting to you, and you see the conversation going south, there's 3 things that you can do. 1, you can decide if it's time to educate, if it's a time to change the conversation, or if it's a time just to leave the room. We all have choices in how we can handle those difficult moments. It's also good news because in a time steeped in tradition like the holidays, the good news is you can make your own holidays. You can Friendsgiving with chosen family. You can make your own traditions, and it brings more meaning, and you can create healthy, happy memories around the holidays. And that's what I find or seems to give hope when you allow people to say, look, there's no right or wrong way to do this. You can have your own way and make it better. if that makes sense.
Oh, it's perfect sense. And I think that's incredibly helpful in there. You do have choices. And I think a lot of people, especially when the toxic conversations come up, the initial inclination is to shut down, but reminding yourself that you have choices and it doesn't have to devolve. And a lot of times I think the most powerful thing you can do is just see people for who they are and understand. And it absolutely needs to not keep devolving into hatred and anger, and you can't meet hate with hate. And so as we look at, it's just uncomfortable conversations. One of my favorite Saturday Night Live skits that we played for the kids this Thanksgiving was the Adele one, where people were talking and they were all at the Thanksgiving dinner, and all of a sudden they started talking and a bad topic came up, and then all of a sudden everybody was yelling at each other, and then a little girl comes up and she presses play on Hello by Adele, and then they all start singing
along.
together. Yeah. You need that jolt or that spark to break people's loops, and what better way than, of course, a hug or at least acknowledgement, people in the eye and accepting and talking. That's my long-winded way of getting me to the next thing that I really wanted to ask you for a long time. And that is, you've had, as part of your organization, as part of the movement, so many experiences with people. Can you share a couple of examples that you may have heard either in person or through the community of, just tell us some good, feel-good stories that you've run across, and maybe even in 2025?
Yes, we just had Giving Tuesday. If you're familiar with that, it's a day set aside, calendar year, to promote and raise awareness and give to nonprofits. And we're part of that. And in our giving link, and I don't know how it all works, technically I'm challenged, but there's a place where you can say this donation is in honor of or in recognition of. And so many people who are either volunteers, like Rachel that we met, and they shared their story, how they first started hugging for free mom hugs, or they were at the store with their free mom hug shirt, and the lady came around the counter and asked for a hug, and it was a moment, and then some bystanders came by, and before you knew it, it was a group of people hugging each other. Yes, there's been some really wonderful stories, and I get emotional because we all remember those moments. The good so outweighs the bad. There's so many people who want to do something. So in this climate that we find ourselves in, how easy it to doom scroll and get so discouraged and overwhelmed. I still do sometimes, but it doesn't take long to remember and see the goodness that is in people and that people want to do something. And the beautiful thing about Free Mom Hugs is that it offers that platform for people to show up and do something. And that's a beautiful thing.
Is there a hug test that you have to pass before you get to volunteer?
Consent would be top of the list. Consent. And we don't let go until they do. And if they don't want to hug, some people just really are not huggers. For whatever reasons, you just acknowledge each other. You just say, okay, listen, I'm glad you're here. We love you. We're celebrating you. If you're out of Pride, you say, happy Pride. Go have fun. Things like that. But consent, high five.
Can you do manly fist bumps?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I think you answered my question. Actually, literally, I was picturing a tackling dummy and a room full of people with clipboards grading your hugs.
Oh, you know what?
Tell you whether or not you're in or not.
That's a good idea. There is a group, I don't know where they're from, but they made a banner, a Free Mom Hugs banner, that it said fist bumps, high fives, I don't know, all the different ways that you can connect. And that's funny.
So we started with that first Pride Parade. And like I said, I imagine you probably have lines at most events. You have lines of people waiting.
Yep.
How did that grow from just a couple of people doing a nice thing at a Pride Parade into an organization? And then how did you get into all 50 states?
Again, it went back to the post that went viral, that caught national attention. And then I was on a Jen Hatmaker podcast, and that went viral. And then I wrote a book titled How We Sleep at Night, A Mother's Memoir. And it's self-published. I didn't graduate high school. You find out how you talk about things being well written. Don't proofread this one. Okay. You realize how limited your vocabulary is. But I never would have thought that I would have written a book. Like, who am I right now? But I couldn't help but tell these stories that I was listening to and learning, things I was learning along the way. And in this book, it talks about my journey from the church to the Pride Parade. Free Mom Hugs is not in this book because it wasn't even on my radar. I am working on a second book titled Beyond the Hug, and it will pick up where this one left off. But all that to say, when the post went viral, it caught the attention of Jamie Lee Curtis. And Jamie Lee Curtis sent me a direct message asking about that post. And
that's got to be discombobulating.
Oh my gosh.
Or just slides in your DMs.
Yeah. The direct message said, hello, this is Jamie Lee Curtis. Your story is trending. Tell me about it. I want to know more. And she gave me her phone number. And she goes, will you call me so we can talk? And I thought, I'll call you right after I pray I'm not getting catfished. And so I did. I prayed I wasn't getting catfished, and I called her, and she found out about the book, and she acquired the rights to the book to make a movie out of this book. But it didn't come to fruition because COVID happened, then the writer's strike happened, and then she won an Emmy and an Oscar, rightfully, and that just took her above and beyond. But I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic here, but let me tell you an incredible story.
Sure.
He believes in the mission of Free Mom Hugs. In fact, I was employed at an architectural firm when Free Mom Hugs was getting going, and it was hard to keep a job and do this at the same time, but she made a donation so I could quit my job. And
Oh, wow.
be hired on as Free Mom Hugs founder. And she believes in the mission. She supports us every year. She's just a great advocate. And so all that to say, we gained a lot of attention, and people wanted to do what we were doing here, and they didn't want to recreate the wheel. So we started the nonprofit with just Oklahoma City. But can I tell you one more story? And I swear.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
All the stories.
Yeah.
Remember the transgender story that I shared with you about going to the meeting? It was around Valentine's Day. And from that meeting, I wanted to create a moment where things were happy and good, a good memory for the transgender community. So I thought, why don't we have a transgender Valentine's banquet that's free to the community? It's free to those who love and support them. And we'll have a meal, maybe a speaker or two, and photographs, just whatever we can do to just make a happy memory free to the community. And so I started promoting that. We were just doing that in Oklahoma City. And a woman reached out and said, I'll send you $500, but I can only send it to a nonprofit. We didn't even have a bank account. And a friend of mine who ran a church in Oklahoma City on our gay strip, it's called Expressions Church. It's not there anymore. But a gay couple ran that church, did amazing things in the community. We did projects together. They said, just umbrella under our nonprofit, and that way you don't have to worry about the red tape, and you can take the donation and do your thing. We did that. She never sent the money in. She never sent it, but we became a nonprofit. Since then, we've become our own identity in the IN number. What was the question?
And
Great.
I
So,
don't remember, but I'm having a
Yeah.
whirl of a time.
that actually leads me into my next question. Can you explain a little bit about the reach of the nonprofit now? And of course, if you can share a little bit about what's it, because we're going to ask people to donate and to connect
Thank
as
you.
part. If you can, just 50 states, are there chapters? How's the organization organized, and how does that all work?
Thank you so much, because people, again, they want to show up, they want to do something. So we started with state chapters. These are individuals. And Free Mom Hugs, we like to think of mom, the word mom being an action verb. We have dads, uncles, nieces. We have shirts that represent every member of the family. So we started with chapter leaders, and we have chapters designated with regional areas, and we have budgets for each chapter. And for example, California is doing amazing work year round, whereas Nebraska or Iowa may be a little smaller, but they're still serving the community. So we have budgets for each chapter. And we even are represented in Moldova. We're represented in Japan, Australia. And these are women that just have, I'm say women, but we have men chapter leaders too. As long as you're affirming, you have to be fully affirming. And that means that you honor same-sex marriage, you celebrate the community wholehearted.
Mm-hmm.
And we have chapter leaders who work, they collaborate with organizations where they are, they serve the community. And the only requirement that we have is that you show up at Pride Festival. And that's either with a table, and you might have Free Mom Hugs merch, which is we offer sunscreen, water, bracelets, things like that. But it's about being that presence there. But more times than that, it leads to helping out with the Second Chance Prom or a national transgender Valentine's banquet. Or during COVID, we sent out care packages. We had national pride rides. The beautiful thing is nobody really knows what Free Mom Hugs looks like because we're always acclimating to whatever the need is. During COVID, we're an organization based on touch, physical touch. We started with care packages, and that's learning that another mother was preparing a care package to send to their son. I thought, why can't we do that? So we did. People would nominate members in the community who were feeling alienated and alone during that time. And we had a national care package send out. UPS got a hold of it and they matched. It was an incredible time during COVID, even though it was devastating. We need a drinking game for the word devastating. Anyway, there's no...
I'm trying to fight back tears. That's my goal for the rest of the podcast.
The what?
I don't want to cry either. I don't want to cry either because this is beautiful. So
we'll do whatever it takes. We have the most creative, dedicated chapter leaders, area leaders, volunteers. We're at 500,000 easy that are registered across the country. We show up at Pride festivals. We do whatever we can. Thanksgiving, we have several chapters who hosted Friendsgiving. Just whatever it is, they just represent the very heart of Free Mom Hugs. But it does take money. There's funding for supplies, for fees to get into Pride festivals, things that they want to do to help support the organizations who are doing the work where they are. So it does take money. We are a national nonprofit, and we have to pay the insurance just like everybody else. And we have 5 staff on our full-time staff. Right now we have a working board. We're working towards a governing board. And we've just had to build the plane in the air, so to speak. But we have an amazing board president, board doing the work, and an executive director, a chapter leader liaison, a social media staff. They make me look really good.
And I would imagine with a staff of 5 and a small community to support 500,000 volunteers, that's a tall order. So I'm sure every donation goes a long ways inside of that.
You're right. But we've been fortunate. We've had the support of Barefoot Wine and Bubbly, Vera Bradley, Hush Puppy Shoes.
Let's talk about me for a minute. One of the most transformative moments of my life is that I went to a comic book convention that a friend of mine was running. And he sat me down ahead of time and he gave me all sorts of rules and ways I could talk, ways I could act around people, and things I was allowed to say and things I wasn't allowed to say. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm going to go and I'm going to have a good time. And then I went and I was immediately overwhelmed with the comedy of it all. And then the longer I stayed and the more that I looked around, I realized I was the one who was out of place, because out of place is the wrong word. I was the outsider in this scenario, not the things that I thought were funny, because these were people, this was their place. and they could be themselves, and they wanted to do. And that was the most important lesson, is that not everything is for me. And so I've always thought that about Pride, is that I think Pride is an extraordinary event. I think Pride is a wonderful event, but I also know that it's not for me, a married straight guy. No. My question is this: how can somebody like me, who wants to respect that the thing isn't for them, also help support what you're doing?
Thank you. And that is such an excellent point. I'm so glad that you brought that up. As allies, I don't want to say job, but our mission is to point to, lift up, support, empower the community to live authentically, to be protected, to be supported. And I have learned some very important lessons along this way. For example, the transgender community, since my advocacy began, has been under fire to such degrees where we have parents in a private online Facebook group for parents with transgender children looking for safe places to raise their children. If every person who's opposed to the transgender community, if they could spend one day in this private online Facebook group for parents with transgender children, or a PFLAG group like I went to, if they could just spend one day listening to the heart of these people, precious people, we wouldn't be having the problems that we're having in the world. But all that to say, when the bathroom bill was making a big round, I had reporters asking me to interview about this subject. And I did. I was happy to speak about it, to try to raise awareness about what was happening. But rather than that, I learned a valuable lesson. You know what? I'm happy to talk about it, but why don't we invite our transgender friends to tell their stories, to talk about it? You see that lesson that I learned there? But there is a place. Pride Festival is a great place for allies to show up to support and celebrate the community. But as an ally, I don't go to everything. I don't go to the boom where there's a swimming pool where the community hangs out and has fun. I'm not like a mom. I'm not going to go there. I'm rambling now, but right. You're right. There's a...
yes, you're right.
And we need to remember, this is not about us. This is about a community that needs support, protection, and absolutely was created to be celebrated.
Absolutely. And, the many should look out for the few. Yeah. And the people that have, that don't have to worry about their safety should be looking out for the people that do. And that's just how I was raised. I was raised very religious as well, and went to a seminary high school. And the things that I took away are very different than the things that some of my classmates may have taken away. But I was less about doctrine and more about, okay, it's religion and faith and empathy all mean very similar things. And I take the empathy part of that very seriously. And I think that's what I've always taken as my responsibility as an ally, as my son is in the community. And he was the chair of the GSA in his high school, the Gay Straight Alliance. And we were very proud of him and let him do his thing. And he winds up all over the place. I don't know what he does or how he does it. And more power to him. He's just our son. And we just, whatever he needs and however he does it, we're all about that. For you, I think as we're looking at, we're close to the end of 2025 here. What do you wish for your community or for the world as we head into 2026 in the new year?
That's a doozy. I wish for world peace. There's just, I wish that I would hope for a day where we don't need 3 mom hugs like we do. Truly, I would wish for that. But until then, I wish for a way to, even more ways to help and support the community. I would like to have scholarships for safe housing, to serve the transgender community in viable ways and support parents, and just to do what you're doing. That's what gives me hope. And I don't know what next year holds, but all I can do is just keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Dave told you his favorite SNL sketch. I'll tell you mine. It's an old one that I'll tell you, and then I'll ask you a similar question. It's an old one. It's an old one with Chris Farley, where he had a show, and he'd ask dumb questions, and then he beat himself up. And he had Paul McCartney on the Chris Farley show, and the question that he asked Paul was, at the end of the White Album, you say the love you take is equal to the love you make. And Paul said, yeah, that's true. And Chris goes, is that true? So, with apologies to Chris Farley and Paul McCartney, Sarah, is healing something as simple as seeing somebody and acknowledging them?
Yes. I know this is true.
And that's so powerful.
It's practical and it's powerful and profound.
I like that. I think that's a great place to start wrapping up. Dave, we're going to ask people for money. Do you want to do that?
For sure. I would love to, again, as part of our sponsorship, or as our sponsor would like us to ask, please visit freemomhugs.org. Sarah, where else would you like to guide people for donations or to find the next event?
You can go to freemomhugs.org. And like you said previously, you can find your state chapter there. You can find merchandise there. What I love about our merchandise is that it sends a message when you can't use words, that you're a strong and faithful ally. You can find your state chapter. When you get plugged in, that'll keep you in the loop of everything happening locally, and just show up. And I guarantee you, I promise you, precious people, that you will not be disappointed. Just show up.
I love that. Dave, I think we typically end these by me asking you the Scooby-Doo question of what did we learn here today? But I think we
definitely learned lots.
We learned a lot. I think it's just something very simple. And I think Sarah was gracious enough to say, help us have our overall arching holiday message this holiday season is just everybody taking a step down from DEFCON 3 and taking a breath and looking at everybody around you and realizing that everybody's hurting and everybody's frustrated and everybody's just doing their best.
Yeah. Look out for the community who need it and take care of them.
It's a great place to breathe and a great place to enter into 2026.
Yeah. I have a friend, she says, do what you can, where you're at, with who you're with.
I love that.
Thank you, Claire.
This has been another episode of Dial It In. He's Dave. I'm Trigby. Dial It In is produced by Andy Witowski and Nicole Fairclough. And with apologies to Tony Kornheiser, we will also try to do better the next time.
Here's a hug.
Okay.